Welcome to the New England Real Estate Journal and New York Real Estate Journal Corporate Roundtable. This is your residential real estate webinar. I'm your host and moderator today, Rick Kaplan. Let me thank the sponsors for this event, Northmark, U.S. Pavement, and our speakers will be Elena Lau, Asian Real Estate Association of America, Ken Van Loo, author of New York Real Estate Investor, Teagan Gaeta, Ask Her About Real Estate, and Brian Calabro, First Realty Management. I want to remind everyone this will be on the New England and New York Real Estate Journal. This is being recorded. It will be on our website. It'll also be on our YouTube channel. It's also running on Facebook Live on the New England Real Estate Journal page. So anyone that's not on here will probably be watching it on the Facebook page. And hopefully Ken will come on and I can stop stalling. I can start. But I don't see Ken yet. So why don't we begin? I want to introduce the panel first off again and let everyone do their own short bio presentation of who they are and what they do. We'll start with Elena. Oh God.
That's fine. Thank you, Rick. Hello, everybody. I'm Elena Lau. I am based in Boston, Massachusetts. I run my own brokerage firm based out in Boston, named Union Real Estate. We focus on residential real estate, representing all buyers, sellers, also renters, and landlords. As on the nonprofit side, I represent the Asian Real Estate Association of America. Currently, I'm helping at the national level with all the chapter development. Currently, we have about 42 chapters and growing with 17,000 members across the United States and Canada.
Thank you, Elena. And let's move on to Brian.
Hi, my name is Brian Calabro. I am a certified property manager and accredited residential manager through the Institute of Real Estate Management. The local chapter is in Boston. The headquarters is in Chicago. I've been managing property over 20 years. My background includes special use assets. I've managed strip malls, anything that really produces income at some point. I've also managed for big companies, Greystar, Berkshire, as well as development companies like Norbloom. So I've kind of got a eclectic background in property management. Most recently, I am now and have been with First Realty Management, which is a Boston-based company. I'm a portfolio manager there. And I have a property in Boston, downtown Boston. I have a couple properties on the South Shore. So I'm glad to join today. I'm excited to hear what everybody has to say and the questions. So thank you, Rick, and thanks.
Well, thank you, Brian. And let's move on to Teagan.
Hi, good morning, everyone. I'm Teagan Gaeta with AHA Homes at eXp Real Estate. I am the team lead. We have about 20 agents, 25 employees right now. Very busy in sales and development. We've been able to expand into different lines of business. So we're now offering in-house financing and staging to our clients. So very, very busy throughout Massachusetts, moving into Rhode Island and Florida and New Hampshire. So we're covering a lot of ground, and I'm excited to be here this morning with everyone. I also partner with Mass Econ, which is more focused on commercial real estate in Massachusetts. So we have a really great listing database, a lot of exposure, working with different companies looking to move into Massachusetts. So getting a little bit busier on that commercial side, working in self-storage, cannabis, and other industries as well.
Great. Well, let's begin our panel discussion. Before we begin, I want to also tell everyone that, there's a Q&A box at the bottom of your screen. Anyone that has any questions for the panel, they can enter it into that Q&A box, and we will try to get to the questions and we'll present them to the panel. Also, anyone that wants to put their contact information in the chat box that you'll find at the bottom of your screen as well, please do so, because if anyone is on here and they want to connect with you, they can find all your contact information right there. Anyone that does put their contact information in there and people want to get that after this, I will have copies of the chat that I can email you if you email me, and I will send it off to you directly. And again, my email is rkaplan@nerej.com. And we're going to begin our questions because there's so much to talk about. And we'll start, and Elena, we'll start with you. With the, am I saying it right, Elena? Elena.
Yeah, you got it.
Oh, okay. With the states in New England and New York starting to open up again after over a year, probably more than a year, how do you see the residential real estate market reacting right now?
Well, I think even through the pandemic, we remain very hot and still being very competitive, having the low interest rate that has raised up even more the demand of houses, and including with all the new trends that people are moving more towards the suburbs. They are looking for more spaces. They are looking for more accessibility to home. So we are seeing a more competitive market. Even usually in a traditional real estate cycle, the summer is pretty slow, but I'm sure the real estate professionals that are here can testify that we're still very, very busy and so highly competitive that I do foresee that's going to continue, especially when interest rates are still remaining historically low.
Great. Okay, Brian, let's hear what you have to say about that.
Yeah, I mean, I second that. What I kind of look at is interest rates are a big thing when it comes to buying. And, with COVID and managing through crises like COVID, it could be a financial crisis or something like this. It just throws things out of whack. And especially, I think, for people that are developers, multifamilies like the big apartment buildings, there can be a trend where maybe some people, you don't want to be in a conference room with other people. There's more singular amenities like a reading room or things like that. But, looking at vacancy rates and right now, I mean, you could just Google some of these things. I think, Boston's hovering around 5%. In comparison, like the suburbs is around 3%. But, just give you a fact check, October of 19, your vacancy rate at 1.48%. October of 20 is 8.9%. So look what that did. That threw everybody to go community living. Let's get out of here. Let's go to the suburbs. And that is, that's going to drive rents down in Boston. The end of 2020, the rents were down 17%. And there were incredible deals. I've never, ever seen, unless it was a lease up, 2 months free, no security deposit, just walk in, pay what you want, but the good thing coming out of a crisis like this is, Boston at one time, 50% of Boston was 60 years or older. So you have to renovate, you have to build new, you have to keep up with demand. So I think Boston is always going to be a really strong real estate performer with the transportation, the airport. And, when I look at some of what the development's going to be, Revere had Suffolk Downs. There's going to be 50 buildings there over 10 years. It's a huge time to invest. in and around Boston. And I think you're going to see a surgence or resurgence of growth and opportunities. The other thing, technology too, Fidelity, I just heard on the radio, I thought this was interesting, that Fidelity's hiring 250 crypto traders. Isn't that wild? So now you can have an investment in crypto. But anyways, I think we're always going to be strong with the financial markets we have, the companies around, the schools. So I don't ever see anything stopping Boston. I just think you'll see a resurgence again. So I'm really hopeful and excited.
Great. Thank you, Brian. Teagan, what's your take?
Yeah, so I think a lot of the comments that were said previously. Obviously, over the past year and a half, the real estate market throughout the country has been really booming and doing well, and the greater Boston area, just so competitive, such a seller's market, and Boston had so much good exposure throughout the pandemic. So seeing on the commercial side, so many life science companies moving into the area and expanding, a lot of towns and cities changing zoning to allow for more life science development, which brings a lot of value to the area. And I think that's an industry that will remain strong, over the next few years. We do work with a number of investors and developers, myself and my agents, and some investors do have some concerns about the market changing slightly in the near future, whether that be in the next few months or the next year or two. No one has really pinpointed, but obviously inflation is looming. It's something to consider. Brian brought up Revere, which I think is such an interesting market because there has been so much built over the past 3 years. And like you said, Brian, so much more coming. Revere is interesting for so many reasons, but I see right now so many buyers really considering where they're moving to. So these coastal towns and cities are doing so well, whether it be Revere on the North Shore or the Cape further south. People are focused on outdoor space, local amenities, outdoor activities. I know that I purchased a property on the Cape almost exactly a year ago, and it was one of the best investments I could have purchased. The rental market down there right now, we're doing so well on short-term rentals. So I think location over the next few months, into the next year or two is going to be so important, especially for developers as they're looking at these projects. People want to be in nice areas where they have these great spaces. And one thing to note about Revere, kind of going back to what Brian said too, is the buildings are filling up. There's a lot of new construction, and these are large apartment complexes, really more apartments rather than condos. They're finding the clientele to fill up the units. However, there is some, I think, some leeway there with some numbers. Like Brian said, there's so many incentives, and there have been over the past year. So when you look at a market focus, for example, with Revere, we might be advertising 1-bedroom or 2-bedroom rental units for $3,000. But when you factor in, 3 months free, when you actually look at the rental cost for your year return, that leaves you at a $2,250 a month rental. So it's really not a $3,000 rental from an investor standpoint. It's $2,200 monthly, rent that you're collecting. So I think as an investor, really digging deeper into the numbers in local areas to see what is really going on is so important moving forward, because there is some uncertainty, and obviously you just want to position yourself well.
Just to add real quick for that area, and part of the development companies in Revere and around it is the blue line in transit-oriented development there's a key to that, because out of all the T lines, the blue line, when we opened up 500 Ocean Ave in 19, had a 28% growth, and it's right on the blue line. So I think you see transit-oriented development. That's why you also have such a growth there. I'm in Quincy today, and Bizzuto has a 650 unit property on top of the North Quincy train station. They're going to be putting a little mall, Best Buy, things like that. And the way that this is happening is that the parking restrictions are lifted when you have transit-oriented developments. You don't have to have 1.6 spots per. That's all gone. So Quincy is another place that's booming with multifamily, and that's the mayor's vision to continue to build these properties because of the local transportation.
Yeah, and one thing I have to say, Brian invited me to see that Revere property, which I went down there and I was amazed that Revere looks the way it looks. I thought I just came out of East Boston into Miami Beach. It looks incredible there. And if anyone hasn't gone down to the Miami Beach, the Revere Beach area, just drive along there. It is gorgeous. And the beach is so nice there now. I was down through there a couple of weeks ago, and the beach, that whole area is just beautiful. Nice summer day. You can really enjoy it. So I can imagine living there. It will be like living on a vacation spot. So I really applaud what they did there. And you talk about Mayor Koch in Quincy and what he's doing in that city. It's been an incredible transformation as well. I really like what he's doing there. Let's move on to, in the past 2 years, residential properties have been on fire, which we just talked about. Do you see this continuing, or will it stabilize? That's something that everyone has been trying to figure out. And let's start with Brian. What did your take? Do you think it's going to stabilize or continue on for a few more years? What?
Well, I don't know. I think a real estate is it's always going to be a great investment, right? Will we see currently 40, 50,000 over asking price? I think what's going to happen is, and Lena had said this earlier, I think as a property or a buyer, you start to look at what's going to happen with interest rates and what the Feds do with these rates, and if they're going to increase them. I think what you're going to see is a slowdown. This is just hypothetical, but I'm going to say there could be a slowdown because, September seems to be a big month for everyone. Oh, I'm going back to work and stuff. But it also, I don't think that the workforce is ever going to be the same. I see a lot of incentives not to come into Boston 5 days a week. Hey, work 3 days here, 2 days at home. But, to answer you, I really don't know. I just don't think it's going to be, 40, 50, 60,000 over asking price. The other thing with the developers on, and everybody in Teagan work together, my goodness, the price of a sheetrock or plywood and all this stuff, the cost to build everything is so high that, in order to make a deal work, your rent levels have to support it. And for instance, I managed a property that competed with Avalon, and our property was already paid for, was established and mature, and we could keep our rent levels lower because it was already paid for. We didn't have to pay all the new construction costs and stuff. So I know I digress, but if you behind me is a big plant, so I'm going to say this is 2019. Right here, see that's the best, and behind me here is 2020. I think you're going to see it continue to grow, but I don't think we're going to hit that plateau again for a while. So I don't know. I mean, maybe other people have different views. I've been in the market a long time. The financial crisis in 2008. I bought a house in 2000. My own experience, it was appreciating about 25 to 30% a year. Bang! 2008 hit. What the heck? But we rebounded. Up until the pandemic, we had the best economy ever. Nothing could stop us. What did was something that was not planned for and something we couldn't foresee. So I've woken up a little on the call. I know I've been celebrating the soccer win from Italy, but I really I digress a little bit. But that's kind of my view of where I think real estate's always going to be your best investment. I think if you're in it and just in it for the long haul, I think it will be good. I just don't think you're going to see people paying these prices that they're paying now to get in.
Okay, thank you, Ryan. And Teagan, what do you think?
Yeah, I agree with Brian. I think it's a little difficult to pinpoint down exactly. Obviously, it's been a great run. Generally, the market corrects itself on average every 10 years. So we're probably a little overdue. And of course, it is going to factor back on lending standards and what those rates are looking like. So we are below 3% still, which is allowing a lot of buyers to purchase at higher price points. So to some extent, you know, the higher price points do equal out with the lower rates for buyers. They might be paying a little bit higher of a dollar amount, but with the lower rate, they can afford it. But I would imagine over the next few months, we see, if not a slowdown, just some type of stabilization. You know, the market can only go up so high before houses just become unaffordable for, you know, the middle class and many citizens. So Brian, to your point, cost of material is up through the roof. So just from May 2020 to May 2021, the cost of lumber was up 410%. So these building costs, the material is very, very, very high. I was on a call about 2 weeks ago with MassEcon, commercial builders, and they're reporting that they can't even get steel. They're ordering steel for these buildings, and they can't get steel in until April 2020. So it's not only the pricing, but also just very low inventory, and getting appliances and getting any type of material right now is so difficult. And with the price increases we've seen over the past few months, it has allowed these builders to continue to build. But at some point, I would imagine, hopefully manufacturing kind of kicks back up. We're getting more of these products, prices go down for the builders, and the market will stabilize. A lot going on too, like I mentioned, with inflation, there's a lot of money going into the economy. Right now, we're probably supercharged in 2021. We've had a lot of federal help. So one example of that, our PPP loans really have enabled a lot of businesses to keep moving forward. Last year, I believe there was $670 billion given out in PPP loans. So that's helped a lot of people, I think, over the past year. But I do think, and I don't think it will be immediate, it might be towards the end of 2022, but I do see properties becoming a little more affordable. That being said, I don't think we're going to have another 2007 or 2008. That was a very different situation. And I think that there's a lot, at least from what I've seen, a lot of investors are saving a lot of cash right now, getting ready to buy up property. So I think as some of these multifamilies and other properties do come onto the market, there is going to be a buyer pool for them. So I don't see prices dropping, especially in Boston, tremendously. We also have the life science industry that's really going to help us, bringing a lot of great talent. And we have some really great tech companies too moving into the area, which is also bringing talent with very, very healthy salaries that can afford some of these home prices. But I'd see over the next few years, probably more affordable housing being built, whether that be for sale or for rentals, and possibly smaller homes. Right now, there's a lot of like luxury construction. So 3,000, 4,000 square foot homes going for, you know, over 1.5 million. I see maybe going back to like 20 years ago when there were a lot of small communities, ranch, you know, style, smaller homes where middle-class families can actually afford those price points, like 500, 600,000.
You brought up a couple of good points that I want to come back to. One is the middle class and also the life science. But I'll come back after. Elena, what is your thought on that?
Sure. So as everybody feel, I think like the pandemic has demonstrated us that nothing is for certain. So by giving all the points that Brian and Teagan has shared, I agree with most of the points. I think it is so hard to determine what's going to be in the future, but by looking at the historical data, I have been monitoring the market since our last recession until now. Home prices at least has increased 50% on the pricing. So I do foresee that real estate will remain as the key wealth building for many owners. So I do foresee that the home prices will continue to rise. Whether or not there will be a lot of more competition or things like that, I think will be driven by the interest rate, whether it's gonna rise or not. And it will be interesting to see what is going to happen with the government-backed loans like the FHA and the VAs. I think like the current market is so challenging for these type of buyers because they typically had the lowest down payment, lower credit score. So that kind of limit them in this competitive market in order to win their offer. So I will be curious to see what the government would do in order to encourage more incentive for this type of market. Because nowadays sellers are more willing to accept an offer that has higher down payment or extra cash, at least like by the NAR estimates about 80% of the seller accepting this type of offers, whereas like only 30% of the sellers are accepting the FHA and the VA loans, which, you know, like that will be a question about how this market is gonna go to. But in general, I do see that the demand will still be there. I think the population keep increasing, therefore housing will be needed more. And I think it will be a question to see how fast the developer will be building homes like more in the suburbs, since the trend is going that way. But in anything, there's opportunities. So what I see opportunity here in the main greater Boston area are probably the condo market, which is not as popular nowadays because of people looking for larger space. But I have been able to help at least the first-time home buyers or small family that are wanting to purchase their first home, at least entering them first in the condo market, which the prices doesn't like increase or it's not as competitive as the single family that are competing with at least 20-25% over the asking price. Instead of the multifamily, I do see that nowadays, because of the financing loans have been a little bit more loosened up in our market, which should be seeing hopefully more opportunity for the multifamily investors.
Great. You know, going back to what Teagan brought up, you know, life science in the city, life science, yes, they were growing and they were strong for a while. And it's still going, but it's branching out into some of the suburbs now. Like you go into Burlington and Bedford and those areas, even if you go up to Maine, close to Portland and those areas, this life science is starting to move into those areas as well. So I don't know how much more growth you're going to see in the actual city. First of all, how much more space do they have for that type of industry? And how many of them are willing to pay what the asking price is per square foot in the city? That's something I think is going to be changing somewhat. And I could be wrong, but you know, I think I see that coming. You know, that it's kind of too expensive to do a build out of a life science project in the city now.
Yeah, I'm trying to look it up really quickly. I want to say it's Seaport. There is a new hub popping up, and I'm just blanking right now in Boston. It's a new life science hub that will actually compete with like Kendall Square. And it is located more in the city. So I think we'll see growth there too. I agree more, in different suburbs too. And that's why Burlington, we just closed on a project over there. Such a vibrant community. The home values right now are increasing. There's such a demand and there's such a good population in terms of the workforce over there, because Burlington just about a year ago passed a big life science ordinance allowing a lot of these companies to come in and expand at a faster rate. And of course, Burlington is home to a lot of tech companies as well. So a lot of these employees of these tech and life science companies, going back once again to Revere, they're coming from California, Silicon Valley, these places that are, on the water. And I think that's why like somewhere like Revere is so attractive to them, because it's on the beach like they're used to. There's going to be soon, with the development of Suffolk Downs, a lot more restaurants, hotel spaces, like some more hustle and bustle. So as we attract all this talent out to the Boston area, we're kind of developing our communities along with that too, which is really neat to see. And then just one last note about the life science. I don't know if anyone on this call is very familiar with Devon's, but Devon's is one community. If you're not familiar with it, do some research. There is so much life science going out there right now. Devon's historically, a lot of the land, I believe, is government owned, and there's not a lot of development. It's not too far west. It's little north, I believe, of Burlington. And there's a lot of companies right now moving in, and there's a few sites that are available, larger development sites. If anyone's interested, please reach out. I'm happy to send over some information. But Devon's is one area that I think over the next 5-10 years is going to change drastically. And if there's, an opportunity to get into that market now early, I think there's going to be a lot of value there.
Yeah, actually, we do talk about, I do a big event every year with the Middlesex 3 Coalition. So one of the areas that, as also we do one for west of Boston, and Devon's has also been talked about quite a bit this past year. So there is a lot of opportunity in that area, and that will also continuously grow the residential aspect of the whatever projects go in there. The other part that the middle class, you said it's affordable for the middle class, the properties. Is there such a I don't know if that word goes together anymore, middle class and affordable. I don't know how a family that is making maybe $150,000 combined income can afford to buy a new home right now. And I'd say 150,000, that's probably the middle class. It might even be a little higher middle classes, maybe 175,000. But to buy a $500,000 home, that's like all your money is going into your home. You have nothing left. Do you see that as being an issue, or is there ways that people are doing this and I don't see it, I don't know it?
Yeah, so I think too. Oh, go ahead, Brian.
I was going to say cannabis. But, I think just to echo.
What do you mean? They should smoke it or sell it?
Maybe they're selling it. I don't know. One time it used to be 30% of your income was towards rent or your mortgage. Boston, I think, is over 50%. I mean, it's so expensive in this area to live. I did want to add, though, I don't know if we should get to it after the affordable housing component. I have a couple of things that I can add to that, but for I don't know how anybody affords it, to be honest. You know, I bought my home in the year 2000, and I couldn't believe I got, you know, at the time it was 180,000. I'm like, wow. And you know, it's over that time, it's just appreciated to numbers I could never afford to have bought that, you know. So to add to that, I don't know what the middle class is. I think everything's being redefined now. What I do see though, what's interesting, every place that I've gone for coffee, every place you go to eat, they're looking for help. And you know, these aren't jobs that are paying like, you know, minimum wage. They're some of them are up to 20, 21 bucks an hour, and they can't get people. So I think that's why there's turbulence in the market when I had said that I'm not sure if we can sustain these high levels to buy. But go ahead, Teagan. I didn't mean to jump in. I just thought of cannabis, and I'm like, that's what people must be selling to afford it.
People need to smoke a joint. Prices and competition. No, I think two thoughts. So yeah, I think affordable is definitely now in a different class than the middle class, and there's a lot coming up with affordable housing, and the state of Massachusetts is investing a lot of money in grants for affordable housing, so we can get to that point. But I think it's definitely an interesting space if anyone is looking at it from a development standpoint. I think one way that people are trying to avoid the competition in Massachusetts, the price point anywhere from 300 to like 650 is just so competitive. You're getting multiple offers. A lot of these buyers, because my team is also licensed in New Hampshire, we do see a lot of these buyers moving to New Hampshire where they can get more land for lower cost. However, because there are so many buyers moving from Massachusetts, now the pricing up in New Hampshire is increasing as well. So a good friend of mine is selling her multifamily in Massachusetts. She's made a lot in appreciation over the past few years. She wants to buy a single family. She looked at something a few weeks ago in New Hampshire, right over the border. It ended up going for like 200,000 over asking. I think they had 20 offers. So a lot of buyers are moving to different areas, I think, to find more value, more open space, you know, room for their dogs. But of course, then the competition out there grows too. So then it just comes down to becoming creative, working with an agent that has pocket listings or off-market deals. I know that, you know, those are a bit fewer and far between, but if you can get creative in that sense, it just beats out some of the other competition and gives buyers a little bit of a better chance. So I think from an agent standpoint, that means agents need to be doing their jobs a little bit better. Like if there's nothing on the MLS for your client, you should be going out. If your client wants to buy in Lynn, Massachusetts, you should be going out. You should be door knocking. You should be looking at the death records. You should be seeing what's coming up and what you can get for your client outside of what everyone else is working on, because that might be the only way to find the buyer a house.
Yeah, you know, yeah, that you bring up a good point, because like the Procopio company in Lynn, they have built brand new apartments and condominiums in the area that it's cleaning up the area to make it a really nice walkable, well, parts of the city to be nice walkable areas and livable, you know. So you know, if that, and same thing is going on in Brockton, and they've been bringing in some high-end properties they just finished in the Brockton area. So it's coming into those areas that you're right, it's more affordable for a family. You just might have to wait some time for the complete changeover, but people did that in the city as well. You go into like the west side of the city or the south end, you know, that changed quite a bit over the past 10 years, where it was getting a little run down. Now you can't touch the properties in those areas, but that's I guess that's real estate, you know. Well, we got a little off track, but you know, one of the things that I was going to bring up in New York City, but Ken's not on. I don't know what happened to Ken, but New York City and Boston, they got hit pretty hard during this pandemic with people trying to move out to suburbs or even out of state to like Maine, New Hampshire, Rhode Island, parts of Connecticut, to get more space for, you know, if they're going to be home all the time, you know, you don't want to be cooped up in that 1-bedroom apartment or 1-bedroom condo. There's been a lot of people that were buying at that time in the past 2 years because of the pandemic and because of, you know, they had to get out of the city. What do you think? You think that people are going to start moving back into cities like New York and Boston because that's the nightlife. You know, there's a lot to do in those areas. It's just when you're cooped up, it's not so much.
Yeah, I mean, just to add for that, I think you know, the city is, especially Boston, you know, New York, it's not my market, but I've been there before. It's huge. Boston has such a concentrated areas of fun, you know. Look at all, the seaport was not designed to be what it is. It's not really what's designed to be an airport, but look what was created. When I was at Berkshire, we opened up the Benjamin Villa, and I had to go and talk to some of the media outlets about, you know, the road is so wide, it's 126 feet wide because it was actually built to be a highway there, you know, so, but look what's been developed there. Nightlife, it's like a whole new world. That's always, I think that's going to attract people to live there. And well as, you know, you have places we have so much diversity in and around Boston for restaurants and neat places and very easy to get to. But I do, you know, there are some people, maybe a couple on the call, that have moved closer to Boston or in Boston because you miss being in, you know, if you're in your 20s to 30s, do you really want to be really far out in a bedroom community, or do you want to be able to go grab something fun to eat or just some drinks, and you have so many different restaurants in there. You know, I was on a call last summer with business owners and restaurant owners that with the mayor at the time, and they were talking about that, you know, businesses and restaurants pay 71% of the taxes to Boston, and they felt they were being penalized because they were being shut down and things like that. So I just think that, you know, I'm obviously born here. I love Boston. I can't say enough. It's a world-class city. And, you know, when you meet a lot of people from outside of this area that fly in, where else can you fly in to Logan Airport in about, you know, 15, 20 minutes, be downtown? You know, it's amazing. So I do think people will come back. I always think that, you know, the point of you either build up or build up. So if you're going to build up, you can put a tower. If you're going to build out, then you maybe have a relocation to the burbs for these big companies. But, you know, Facebook is hiring now. There's a lot of companies that are hiring. They're seeing the need. The second part is I heard from a friend that certain companies in New York, you have to report to the actual office. They're not going to allow you until you've been there so many years, a tenure to work from home. So I think you're going to see some companies get a little bit more stern on it. I don't know if it's about 5 days a week, but I think Boston's just a great place, and I think it will always be a place to bring people back to the city. So that's just my view, my 2 cents, if it's worth anything. But I you know, obviously, I'm all Boston, right?
Well, I'm sorry. No, go ahead, Elena. No, I was just saying, do you see the people buying condos now in the city because did they drop in price somewhat because of this whole pandemic thing?
Yeah, we saw, you know, quick closings, you know, in the condo market. That was the time to buy. I think people were taking advantage of the fact of what they could get, and the pricing was a little bit lower. there's always going to be areas that are recession proof, certain areas that are always going to have per square foot. But right where I was in downtown, we saw, we saw our pricing drop from around $950 a square foot to $820. So the value there, I mean, look what you're getting. And now we're going to see that value go up. So I do think that, but that's just my view. People on the call may have more experience on it, but that's what I've seen.
Elena, did you want to say something?
Yep. So just to add to what Brian was saying, and I related earlier that the condo market was like kind of still during the pandemic, but because of the reopening, the condominium has like surged, not as rapidly as the single family. And to add to another point is that we are also help a lot of colleges and university. So I do see that there is a lot of more international students coming back in town. So like the rental market is flourishing again, like compared to like last year that it was basically dead. So like I mentioned before, there is certainly opportunity to invest in the city. As long as the investor has like the patience and then like looking at the investment as a long term. And then like Brian relayed before, and I think one of our attendees, David, had mentioned that there are a population of workers that will be or are coming back to the workforce in their office. So I don't think like Boston will remain like just there. I think it should be coming back sooner rather than later.
One of the things, excuse me, I get asked all the time, and I deal mainly with commercial real estate people, but people ask all the time about residential because they think real estate is real estate, and that's it. But what about these first-time buyers that do have some sort of a down payment for a property? What do you give them? What would you suggest to them as far as what they should do, where they should buy, what kind of down payment they should have? Should they have a 3% down payment? Should they have a 20% down payment? I know obviously if they have more, that's even better. But if they don't have that ability, how do they get around the closing cost and all of that? Is there anything that you can suggest for a first-time buyer so they can get into it as easily as possible?
Well, let me.
That answers that.
Well, no, it's great. I can only give you my experience. I was pretty green to what to do. So, I took a class, first-time home buyer, and I remember I did nothing what the class told me to do. It said, I didn't look at the appreciation and things like that. So what did I do? I put 20% down. And then I realized that took a lot of my cash that I was going to need windows or roof and stuff. So what I should have done is look at trends and kind of see that if the house was appreciating, I should have put 5%. So if I was to give a recommendation, I know I was avoiding PMI, but really you're going to need cash unless it's a turnkey. And this is where, Teagan's specialty is she works with all these, people that are buying. So she probably adds the most to this, but just my experience, I should have really thought about things a little bit more in the future because I was going to need cash flow or that cash that I saved. So, maybe Teagan, you can piggyback off it.
Yeah, I have to kind of disagree with you. I think save as much cash as you can. Cash is king. And, right now with the market being so competitive, having extra cash on hand is only going to help you. What I've run into, just ran into it a couple days ago. With these multiple offer situations, because the prices are going so high over asking, then it becomes an appraisal concern for the seller. If it's going 100, 200,000 over, is it going to appraise out? Probably not. So the buyer who has additional cash to cover that appraisal gap has a stronger offer than a buyer who doesn't. So it's very situational. Everybody is different. I would say for a first-time home buyer, the first thing to do and the most important step is to just build your team. So find a really good agent. Like I said before, an agent that's going to really hustle and think outside of the box. Find you pocket listings, off-market listings. Find a good lender. If you're approved through like a Bank of America or a Chase Bank, not that those banks aren't great, but they're not specializing in mortgages. They're not local. A lot of agents don't like to see those pre-approvals. So find a local lender, ask your agent, ask your network, find someone who's local with good rates, who you can get a pre-approval from and really feel confident. A lender that will get on the phone with a potential seller. Sometimes these sellers are calling all the lenders because they want to confirm that the buyer is qualified. So the first step is really just setting up a great team and then seeing what's in your means. You might have plans in the next few years to have several kids. You might need more cash on hand. Your kids might be going to college. You might need cash for that. You might be planning vacations. Everybody's lifestyle looks different. Obviously, if you put down the 20%, your offer is most likely going to be stronger than someone's with less money down, and then you do avoid that PMI, which isn't a bad thing. So save as much as you can and really just build your team and, just give yourself time to, I think, in this market, because first-time home buyers should recognize that they might have to put out several offers or look at more properties than they would if it wasn't such a competitive market.
But to Brian's point, if you do have to do some work on the property after you purchase it, if you're paying above asking and probably above appraisal, you might not be able to even touch an equity loan for a number of years. Correct?
Right. Yeah. So it's very situational. You just reminded me of my other point I was going to make, but very situational. If you know you're getting into a house that is going to need windows, I mean, you don't want drafts. It's going to cost you more money during the winter in Boston. If you have like your drafts and your heat's not working, it's just not going to be a good thing for you. So, I mean, take into consideration what work needs to be done on the property. You can always ask the seller for credits or to make repairs, especially after an inspection. But of course, that then does make your offer a little less competitive. AHA Homes, our real estate team, is offering a $2,000 buyer credit towards closing costs for any buyers that purchase a home through us. So be creative and look for programs like this. Look for lenders that might have special programs, agents that might have special programs. You work with an agent, you get $2,000 off the closing costs. That's another $2,000 in your pocket. So you need to really be looking at local professionals and look at your network too. Maybe you have like a friend or someone that can help you do some of the work. Maybe you want to get a house and put some sweat equity into it. And there's so much content online, and some jobs should definitely be done by a professional, but there's a lot of work that you could do to your own house, and you can have fun with it too. YouTube, you can learn how to do anything on YouTube. So you need to take into consideration what needs to be done. Of course, save cash if needed, but think about how much you're willing to take on and who in your network could help you as well.
Interesting. I like that $2,000. That's very creative. Any other comments on that?
Yeah, just to add to that, and I have been doing this for my client who are like first-time home buyer, and then they had like less than the 20% down payment, is that to look at those property that are on the market for longer than the 2 weeks. Usually the homes that are just launched on the market, those are gonna get highly competitive, multiple offers. And then for those buyers that are out there who are more flexible on what they're looking for, I think there is a lot of opportunity out there for those homes that are longer on the market. And then the seller are a little bit more willing to negotiate the terms. So you are not, putting out so much of the cash or needing that extra cost for that appraisal gap or things like that. And then someone might have also been able to do the home inspection, whereas the homes that are on the market on the first week, they are gone without any of the contingencies. So being creative in this market is very important. And then knowing what the sellers needs and wants are looking for in order to, if this buyer are willing to provide those incentives to the seller, that is always a plus, in addition to like what has already been mentioned, like cash is king, right?
Well, you also hear, and I don't even know if this is a real thing or not. I just hear, I read it sometimes on advertisements, rent to own or lease to own. Is that even a possibility? Is that something that's for real?
So, yeah, so just to, go ahead, Elena, I'm sorry.
No, go ahead.
So Rick, behind me is the Lovejoy building, which is owned by Related Beal. And they actually were stuck at 50% until they started the rent to own. So that program for them has worked. The challenge with that building is they didn't have a garage, and you're paying a fee for your car that you have to wait for a valet to get them across the street. So they have to overcome some challenges there, but they were a rent to own property in Boston.
Seller financing is great too, and it does not work for every seller, but it is a great way, especially for investors, to not tie up all their cash and secure the property. So that's definitely one way to get creative.
Elena?
Yeah. So like I was mentioning earlier, it does happen. It's just not as abundant as other type of property, but I feel that in the best interest of the seller, of course, if you put it on the market, there will be more, they will be getting more for their home. But there are some private arrangement that I have seen offline that, that they do rent to own, especially for those long-term tenants that has great relationship with the owner. That certainly happens.
So you're talking about unconventional type of financing where maybe the owner takes back part of a note or something like that?
Yeah, either they're seller financing like Teagan had mentioned before, or they they do the rent to own with and then going through the traditional financing. So it will be more like a private selling, things like that afterwards.
So the rent to own is a real thing. I mean, I thought it was something like a scam type of deal, but so it's real. Well, that's good. Now we're coming to the close. It's we have like 4 minutes, and I'd like to get everyone's final words on what they see the trends and some of the innovations and incentives. Are there any kind of federal or government incentives for people that are looking to buy a new home? So I want to go to each one of you, and I know right now it's still a seller's market. When do we think that it'll be that switch where it will be going to a seller's market, a a buyer's market, not a seller's market. Right now, it's a seller's market.
Sounds like Rick wants to buy something, so he's trying to hedge when that will happen.
Well,
I just
I'm
wanted to-
always
there was a
interested
couple-
in buying something.
There's a couple of things that were added on the chat or the Q&A. Just a couple of quick comments. Somebody said that the Seaport looks like New York City. One note, when Mayor Menino was the mayor of Boston, he didn't want that look. So he put in that any building built in Seaport can't be higher than 22 stories. That's also because of the airport, but also cannot have a flat top. So anything that's being built in Boston in that particular area, that's something they're trying to avoid, but it's interesting that they put that there. And then somebody else wrote about how do you keep someone or a renter from moving to a shiny new product. Haven't been in that industry for a long time too. It's very difficult to do it unless you're doing like, hey, ask them, maybe you can paint the wall, accent wall. There's little things that might mean a lot. Personally, I don't think a lot of people like to move. I would not want to move every year or two. So if you can keep them, those little things. But no, Rick, my uncertainty with the market. I don't know when it will be a buyer's market. I think it's going to be a seller's market for a while, but I do think there will be a price adjustment. Like Teagan said, you're getting to a point where when interest rates will change by the end of the year and stuff, you're just not going to see people paying an extraordinary amount over. So I can't answer your question. I'm not Nostradamus or anything like that. Maybe Elena and Teagan can add something different.
Okay, well, I'll go to them for their expertise.
I agree with Brian. I think it will remain a seller's market for at least the rest of the year. I do think 2021 will be one of the better, if not the best, real estate kind of years we see for the foreseeable future. I think that this is definitely an extreme market to a certain extent. And I do know, just to mention what someone wrote in the comments also, I do agree with Jason, and I know we touched on life science, things like that. A lot of those lab space jobs, like Jason said, actually requires the employee to go into the lab or into the office. So I think in Boston, we will have a higher percentage of employees going back. However, definitely people are focused on their community, what's available. I do think we'll start seeing some of these smaller like city hubs. Worcester is a great example, a lot going on there. People want to like eat, play, live, and go outside all in their direct community. So I see more kind of going out into the suburbs, but definitely a lot of people still looking to be in this city. I think we're kind of split. I think the United States is probably split on a lot of issues right now. And I think that South Boston, Southie is a really good example right now, showing people coming back to those urban areas, because about a year ago, South Boston, East Boston, those condo markets especially, they have been appreciating over the past year. So they did slow about a year ago, and now they're picking back up. Restaurants now in South Boston, Southie are reopened. People are going out. There's lines down the street. There are definitely still a number of people that are staying home and might be vaccinated and are still wearing masks out in public and don't want to be around other people, but there's a very high percentage of people that are excited to get back in front of other people, are excited to go to events. So I think South Boston right now already, the prices are starting to go back up a bit, but I think we'll definitely stabilize 2022 and we'll have to see what happens. Boston is a great market, so I'm happy to be here.
Great, thank you, Teagan. And Elena?
Yeah, so I agree with Brian and Teagan. I think it's like the market in Boston is so strong, regardless of what have been happening because of the pandemic. I think with like all the reopening, people are coming back to the city and reassessing what choices they have made or they have been thinking of making in terms of housing, whether they're gonna go back to the city or like go to the suburbs. But I think like options are out there for the consumer, especially when employers, like some employers are willing to have that flexibility from working from home and or also going into the office. But in terms of your question, whether this will be stabilizing or not, I feel that at least for the rest of the year, we're gonna continue to see the market going stronger. And then we'll see what's gonna happen with the interest rate. But I think demand will still be out there. Home prices will still be increasing like it has been for the past years. And then I think I'm very hopeful and positive about the Boston housing market.
Well, thank you, Elena, and thank you, Brian. Thank you, Teagan. We ran out of time. I have a few other questions, but that's for another time. I want to thank everyone for attending today and look for our in-person events coming up in September, which will be nice to see people face-to-face again. I want to thank our sponsors for today, Northmark and US Pavement. And I want to wish everyone a great day.